Welcome back to the workshop. So I'm bringing you to my printer number 2 here, and it had a drag chain setup that was on this x-axis, but unfortunately I actually had a stress failure of one of the wires right about here, right where it did a really tight radius. So this is how the printer was designed to be run, which allows the wires to just basically free float like they are now. And it works really, really well like this. I didn't like how it looked, so I did what most people do and downloaded a drag chain setup off of Thingiverse. And I'll be actually contacting the person that I got the file from, because really the bend radius is not right. And I'm going to show you what it looks like on printer number 3, because it was set up exactly the same. But yeah, so this is the temporary solution. I do need to change out the extruder cartridge, or the heater cartridge for the extruder, because it does have compromised wiring now. The good news is when it actually broke twice, I soldered it, and then it broke just probably 30 hours later in the same exact spot right next to the solder joint. So this time we removed the drag chain so it won't be flexing the wire in that place anymore. Alright, so over here, this is the drag chain setup as it was before. So this one's a little bit tighter, it doesn't have as many hours as the other drag chain. So it keeps the bend radius pretty tight, but if you notice how it moves, it's kind of jerky, it has tight spots and loose spots. And what happened with this other drag chain, you notice this is how tight the bend radius was on it. And this is the point of which it failed, right there in that little tight radius. But the contrast is, here is a equally sized drag chain that you can commercially buy, and that's the tightest bend radius it'll do. It hard locks, but it runs nice and smooth all the way through the motion. It also has bigger flats on there to kind of distribute the load, so you don't have quite the pressure points of this other one. But just comparing the bend radius, it's a night and day difference how much tighter that worn-in drag chain is. So I'm planning on rebuilding these printers with a custom frame, very much like the Foundry Specialist setup. And the plan was to swap out all these printed drag chains for actual professional ones. And the reality is, this drag chain is not expensive. It's a 10 by 15 is what it's defined as, because they map the internal space. And this was $10 for 3 feet of it on Amazon. And I know I spent a lot of hours just trying to print those off. I think this is the way to go, but I'm going to show you guys a better implementation of it here in just a sec. So now here, this is how I set it up on the Foundry Special. I ran it so it's not, instead of coming off of the housing down here where it's being forced into a tight radius, all it'll ever see is basically, so this is straight down, so it has a very loose arc through here because of kind of the way it's set up. And then even when you go out this way, I set it up where it can kind of just drop, so these wires aren't actually getting flexed at all going from one side to the other. So here's it all the way at the other extreme, but it's got a nice loose radius, but also it's allowed to travel up, so it'll never put any real stress on that as it's cycling. I did something very similar with this drag chain, where as it moves through its cycle, it spreads the bend point out. It locks up and then spreads the bend point out. So as you can see here on this going from one side to the other, it never gets a really tight radius other than when it's all the way at the end stop. But for the most part, you won't be printing all the way at the end stop. So this will be okay. And it's not running all the way to the bend limit of the drag chain as it was engineered. So should work out just fine. So, and ultimately this is what I'm going to do to the other little printers. They're going to get set up basically identical to this. I'm actually going to be using this exact same hardware kit when I swap it over. So but that's about it. Just thought I'd show you kind of a different way of doing it. I definitely like this system a lot better than the one that I downloaded all those years, or I guess it was a year and a half ago. But yeah, so that's about it. Short one today, so get you all on the next one.